Hello again, everyone. My name is David Bastel alongside ARIA President Stacey Evoy, and this is the Real Estate Edition podcast. On today's show, we talk with realtor Matt Leonetti. Now, Stacey, to say that social media has been key to his success is a little bit of an understatement.
Yeah, David, for sure. Calling all dinosaurs who have been in the business for 10 years or more, you're not going to want to miss this modern uptake on how to do real estate social media style.
Yeah, it's a great conversation, and we look forward to it. Now, just as a side note, this is our last ever episode of the Real Estate Edition podcast. A huge thank you to all the guests throughout the years, the different hosts, and of course, our awesome executive producer, Haley Anthony. This has truly been a lot of fun. Now, here's our conversation with Matt.
You're listening to this month's episode of The Real Estate Edition with host David Bastel.
Matt, can you start off by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, a brief background about your career?
Yeah, so my name's Matt Leonetti. I'm with the agency. I've been in the business for just over 6 years now. Before this, I was a touring musician. I was just kind of hired by musicians and was kind of paid to play. When I got into real estate, I really wanted to shake things up. Didn't happen for my first kind of 2.5 years. I was really lost in the business. Started doing some comedy skits and sketches that really kind of took my business to the next level. And now I'm here on the Joe Rogan experience of real estate podcasts.
You know what? That's exactly what we are. So,
Yeah.
we're really glad. I'm glad to be talking to you here. Okay. Then let me ask you this. Then, so yes, you were part of the podcast back in 2019, and of course, we welcome any of our listeners that want to go back to listen to it because they are online, of course. But let me ask you this: since 2019, what have you been up to since your last appearance on the show? Because it has been, 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a long 3 years with the pandemic and everything like that. I've really just been doubling down on content. On that episode that I was on in 2019, I think I was starting to kind of come to my own a little bit, and I was talking about doing more content, and I really kind of found my lane in that 3 years. And now it's kind of flourished into a lot more than just being a real estate agent. I mean, I have a podcast, and I've been able to monetize a lot of what I'm doing now and have different kind of streams of passive income, whether it's the podcast, my videos. I speak all over North America now. So a lot has changed in the 3 years for sure.
That's great. That's awesome. In this business, you certainly need multiple streams of income, especially to get you through the one we're in right now. Matt, you're known for creating really creative videos on your social channels. Can you tell us about what gave you the idea for your first real estate music video? And what are some video best practices you've learned since then?
Yeah, so I had the kind of comedy skits and the parody music videos. I had those ideas since I got into the business, and I would tell them to my mentors at the time, and everyone said the same thing. They'd say, you can't do that. It's not professional. People aren't going to take you seriously. You're already young. It's going to be hard to be taken seriously if you kind of do comedy sketches or parodies like that. So I just kind of I had the idea way back when. Um, I went through a really rocky period in my career where I was almost thinking about getting out of the business because I really couldn't get anything going, and it was getting frustrating. Like I think a lot of people feel. Um, I think I don't know if the stats true. I think it's like 87% of agents don't make it past the 5 years, something like that. You guys probably know you're a RIA, but yeah, something like that. So um, I just when I was thinking about getting out of the business, I was like, back against the wall. Let me just try this. I had never tried it before, so let me try it. If everyone hates it, I'm already thinking about getting out of the business anyways. But there's a chance people could like it, and it could, turn into something more, which it has, luckily. So I was able to stay in this wonderful business.
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry to jump the gun there, but the impact it had and the impact these videos have on leads for yourself on your overall business. Can you kind of take us through that as well? Because obviously this has been a massive benefit to you.
Yeah, it's at first I was doing them just because they were funny and they were fun to do. I didn't really know where it could lead me. So I did a video for a listing when it was my first kind of comedic sketch I've ever done. and the listing ended up selling in 8 hours with 3 offers. And this was right before we really went into the market that we just came out of. So that was 8 hours was my fastest sale ever. So once that happened, I was like, wow, this really works. And then I just really started doubling down on the content. And it wasn't until February 2020, right before the pandemic, I'll never forget it. I did a video where I dress up like Freddie Mercury and I walk my clients through the house and I say kind of lines from Queen songs and stuff like that. And that was the first time, like, from that video, Ryan Serhant reached out. Like, I had a lot of big names reach out to me, and I credit it to be the video that kind of changed the entire course of my career. So that time, I found that it's, these videos are big commercials for my business to stay top of mind and to start conversations. And in this business, that's all you want to do is start conversations. I think people are too fast to get to the sell, and they don't want to build the relationship at all. So these were awesome ways to kind of take down the barrier between me and my audience, where they felt like they could actually reach out to me and talk to me. And that video alone, I think, that year, I tracked that back to $95,000 worth of commission from that one video of me dressing up like Freddie Mercury. So it was pretty crazy. And I just went as hard as I could after that, because I finally, the vision was cleared after that. And I figured out, like, okay, this is more than just being funny. There's something actually here.
You've kind of rang a bell with me. I'm just kind of curious, during this video, did you actually sit there and maybe tell the clients you were with that you're my best friend I ever had? I've been with you for such a long time. You're my sunshine, and I want to know that my feelings are so true. Ooh, you're my best friend. Did it work?
No, no, I didn't do that one, but I did have my client ask if these floors are hardwood, and I started doing the "We Will Rock You" stomp, and I said, "Yeah, they're hardwood." So stuff like that, and yeah,
Fantastic.
I did. At the end, I say, "I gotta go. My mama just killed a man." Stuff like that, just
There, yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, thanks for playing along with me at least, right?
yeah,
Okay. A serious question though. The market does continue to change, and it's at a rapid pace. So, what sort of advice would you have for realtors that are trying to set themselves apart in this market as far as video coverage is concerned, or is it just something that you kind of adjust to as it goes yourself, and you can kind of, some people say you can just feel things sometimes.
Yeah, it's you have to be genuine to yourself. A lot of people come up to me and they're like, I want to do creative content to separate myself, but I'm not funny. And you don't have to be funny. There's a lot of ways to create creative content, whether it's analytical or just being kind of bubbly or silly or something. Like, it doesn't just have to be funny content. In fact, funny now is kind of oversaturated within the business right now. It's kind of hard to stand out if you're just doing funny content, because everyone's on TikTok dancing and pointing and doing all that. So I think you really need to double down and just be yourself. And it's hard, I know, because like a lot of people will say, well, just be yourself. And for a lot of people, you don't know what that is, especially once someone sticks a camera in front of your face. You kind of lose everything because you're nervous. So what I always tell people to do is maybe talk to your friends, ask them, what do you like about me? Was there something that gravitated you towards me? Was I analytical, charming, sarcastic? What did you like about me when we first met? And then maybe that's something that can kind of strike something into your video work. And you could, because you have to separate yourself in some way. There's so many agents now, and you're just going to get lost in the pack if you're just doing what everyone else is doing. And what I've found for me personally is people, agents and clients, have really appreciated the risks I've taken, and the creativity, like the creative risks. Um, and I think that was the best decision I've ever made in my career, was taking those risks and not just kind of staying in the middle of the pack.
Two things from me. I want to congratulate you for being a funny realtor. Many realtors think they are funny, and
Yeah.
well, they're just not funny. And secondly, what happens when you ask your friend that question and they go silent?
Yeah. You got to
Time to leave the
rethink your
business.
friends.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If they got nothing, I mean, maybe they're not even your friends. But it's just something to kind of start. Like, you'll have to find it. And a big thing also is trial and error. A lot of people see what I'm doing now, and they think, oh, well, it's easy for you. You have all these followers, and people, well, it wasn't always like that. There's a lot of trial and error in the beginning and tailoring to your audience. You have to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And the problem is people stop doing things after the error. So you'll have one great video and that's good. And then the next week you'll post one that didn't do well, and instead of comparing them and thinking, okay, well, my first video did awesome, my second video didn't do so awesome, what did I do differently? And then you compare those, and then you start tailoring it to your audience, because clearly they liked something about your first video. But a lot of people stop once you don't get that traction or that instant gratification of likes and comments and things like that, or a lead right away. These are, everyone knows, like, what you do now is going to turn up in 90 days, sometimes 120 days, sometimes in 5 years. You can't just be waiting for that instant gratification in this business.
Matt, what are some basic social media do's and don'ts that you've learned along the way?
There's a lot. There's a lot, and I'll try and get it into a couple sentences. The do's, I would say, again, be yourself. Post content that is shareable. Try and get content that is getting shared by the people who already follow you. A lot of people ask, how do I get new followers? I don't think that's the right question to ask. I think you should be asking, you know, how do you tailor things to the followers you already have? Because if you can make shareable content that the followers you have like, and they end up sharing that content to other people, sharing content is like the is like a social media referral. That's how you get kind of all, if someone shares me a piece of content, I'm way more likely to actually watch the whole thing, because I know that someone I know and trust has shared that to me, and they think I'm going to like it, so I'm going to watch it. So you have a way better, you know there's a way better chance someone's going to actually watch the entire thing or watch it at all. It's hard to create content for someone who doesn't know you at all, and for them to stop on it, watch the whole thing, then click on your profile, follow you, and comment. Like, there's a lot of steps that go on with that. Um, so that's what I would say. Focus on the followers you have, not the followers you don't have. For a don't, um, I do like, I'm a little polarizing with my content, so I've heard. But I never bring up anything, um, like, I'll never bring up religion or politics or anything like that. That's just like super. It's just, there's too many opinions to have, and I don't want to get myself into those type of things. So I would try and keep it fun. That's what, social media is meant to have fun, not be super deep all the time.
Those were helpful. And building off that, what platforms typically work best for you to reach your audience?
For me, it's Instagram. A lot of people will argue TikTok. Gary Vee just came out with his top 5 social platforms, and Instagram actually wasn't even on it. So it's different for everyone. I think Instagram for me is the best place to post content and also interact with the audience that you have. Um, but TikTok is great for going viral, which a lot of people seem to lust after a little bit. But it's really not as big of a deal as you would probably think. Going viral, it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. And a lot of times on TikTok, I find that the followers aren't as engaged. They follow you and they move on. On Instagram, for me, you can really build a relationship with the people who are following you.
That's fair. That's fair. So, keeping content fresh, no matter what you're doing in any industry, is tough. So, how do you do it? How do you keep it fresh, and how do you look at trends, or what goes through the mind of yourself and firing this up?
Yeah, I try and stay away from trends. Again, the trends are what is probably going to make you go viral. If you would go viral, it's probably going to be from a trend. I stay away from it. I want to be like as original as possible. I want to be seen as like a creative, not just like a trend hopper. Because the trends, they're not very creative, and I think the
Right.
whole point of social is like to separate yourself. And if you're doing the same trend as everyone else, then it's just kind of you're back in that same pool of 5 years ago when everyone was just posting sold signs and open houses. Like you're just back there, but now you're pointing and dancing on TikTok. So, I mean, I try and like draw inspiration from things outside of the business, pop culture. I'm a big comedy fan. I'm a big music fan. So I try and draw inspiration from other things. And I mean, the trends aren't bad. Um, they're a cool way to kind of mix up content. But I think if you do a trend, um, have a little bit more substance with it. So maybe like, do a little dance, but then in your description, have like a super analytical description about the market in the last 30 days or something. So you grab their attention with the trend of you dancing, and then you stay on the post by reading it. And then the longer someone stays on your post, that helps the algorithm. And, that's what every app wants. They want to see that people are engaging in the post and staying on it and sharing and commenting and liking. So the longer you can get someone to stay on your post, the better.
Right.
Matt, I want to throw away my questions right now and just ask you my own questions because you're the most engaging guest that we've ever had. And this is something that I know realtors, I've been in the business for 20 years. We're always looking for new ways to use social media. And I love some of your comments about be authentic because you hear that everywhere. But I honestly think people struggle with how do they do that? And that's like, so for me, you came on the show and it's like right away you answered, like, I found my why in the business, and people search years and years for that. Anyway, Haley will kill me. I want to throw out my questions, but I resonate with a lot of what you talk about. And it's funny. So when I started in the business, and I'll be 20 years in April, you farmed an area. So, you sent out every month 500, then you built it up to 1,000 to 2,000 postcards. And it's real estate is really the same thing reinvented. So you send out your postcards every month. And I laughed at something you said because what would happen is you'd send out your postcards and no one would call or engage. And you'd just say, I'm going to scrap my postcard campaign. Whereas, you have to continue it for at least 12 to 24 months in order to sort of see if it's going to be successful. So you've touched on a lot of points, and I just love the feel of this podcast because, everything you talk about is modern and fresh in our business. So I want to talk about your own podcast and what gave you the idea to start your podcast and how has it impacted your business?
Yeah, so we wanted to start something. The Broke Agent and he's a big content creator out of LA. We kind of hooked up about 2 years ago now. And yeah, we always knew we wanted to do something. We had similar content ideas. And then we fell on a podcast. We were a little skeptical on the podcast at first because a lot of people have podcasts and we wanted to have something that was fresh and maybe never kind of seen before. So we decided to kind of bring our humor into it. We wanted to have valuable conversations with guests, big top producer guests, and also bring some humor into it to make it feel a little more human. So that's what we did. We kind of doubled down on that. We got some big guests right away. Our first guest ever was Jordan Cohen. He's the #1 Remax agent in the world. And our second guest was Ryan Serhant. The reason we did that is we felt once we had guests like that, we could really leverage the rest of the show with those guests and be able to get top tier guests that people would actually want to listen to. And we loved the contrast of having guests like that with us because we're like a little more silly and just want to like have some fun. So the contrast of like extreme luxury and then like me is like a funny thing to watch sometimes. So yeah, that's what it's done. And it's created incredible brand awareness. I didn't know it's done a ton for my business. Um, and I kind of break my business up into two categories now because I have the real estate side and the content side. But both I get listings from just literally posting stories of these podcasts. I get listing appointments, new clients reaching out, all that stuff. It's also made me a way better public speaker in general. It's made my negotiation skills better when I'm handling a client in a presentation or whatever I'm doing. It's done a lot for it. And the great thing about long form podcasts is, you can do a 40-minute podcast and have 20 20 clips of content for Instagram and TikTok as well. And that's something you're not even create like it's not like you're sitting down and thinking of a skit. You're just having a conversation with someone. You can have some fantastic pieces of content that comes out from that.
Yeah. And that's I was just going to ask you about that just as a side piece. So, and we should tell our audience, by the way, it's called the Over Ask podcast. Comes out every single Monday, correct, Matt?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's something to definitely check out if you haven't checked it out already. So with the content itself, so you have videos that come out at certain times, and you have the podcast that comes out every single Monday. And dig a little deeper in that for a second, because you're right. You have that, X amount of time. If it's an hour podcast, if it's half an hour, whatever it is, you dig little pieces out of it to create stuff throughout the week, almost to hold you over until the Monday. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a real big strategy, but it truly is, because it works, and a lot of successful businesses actually do this at almost every single level.
Yeah, the clips are the most important part, I'd argue, about the podcast. In some cases, they do better than the entire podcast, because you can
Yeah.
really leave cliffhangers, and that's the reason why people want to actually go watch We're very, very particular on the clips that we choose. After every episode, we sit down with our producer and we kind of go back and say, okay, well, when they said this, make sure you grab that. When you said this, sometimes we'll plant some things in there that kind of leaves a really good cliffhanger because you want the audience to watch it. And yeah, exactly what you said. It kind of holds you over until the next one as well.
Yeah. So is that outside of that? I'm guessing this is probably one of the answers to my next question, but so what's something you wish you knew about, now, I guess, what you know now, of what you wish you knew when you first started in the business? Would you have jumped at the podcast right away? Is that something that you would have done then?
Yes and no, because I don't think I'd be ready to do a podcast then. I didn't come into my own until about 3 years in. So I don't think the podcast or the skits, though I would have loved to start them how I did right away, I don't think they would have been as effective when I did. So I think everything kind of happens for a reason. But yeah, I mean, if I could have doubled down on social right away, um, that would have been like life changing. I always say, I'll post a video, get 100, 200, 300,000 views, go knock on 300,000 doors and tell me how long it takes because I can get that in a day or two. So
Yeah.
the fact that people aren't putting more emphasis on social, and I get you got a great referral business, or you are a door knocker, you are a cold call, or you do mail outs. Well, I always say, why don't you door knock the area that you're farming, and then also target market on Instagram and Facebook. So when you knock on the door, you leave them a flyer. You have a little QR code that goes to your Instagram. So at very least, they see your face at the door. They see your face on the flyer. They throw the flyer out because that's what most people do. They go sit down. They go on Instagram. Oh, there's that guy again. You can't leave, and then you do it every month and you target market. It's such an amazing tool. You're everywhere. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
like another layer that people don't think about. And that social credibility really, really helps. It's not the end all be all to have a lot of followers, but the way this industry and the way the world is going, people put a lot more value in having a bigger social following or a credible social following. That for a lot of people legitimizes the brand.
Yeah.
Matt, if you had to choose just one thing, what's the most important thing you've done in the last year that has improved your business?
I think being consistent with everything I do. From the outside, it looks like I'm just being a silly, funny guy, but I'm very consistent. I'm very strategic with what I do, um, and with the podcast and the clips. And but probably the newest thing has been the speaking. About a year in now, I've been about a year in actually speaking. I spoke with Ryan Serhant in Boston. That was kind of my first big one. I did some virtual things with Tom Ferry and Gary Vee. I did Inman, New York, and Vegas with a lot of big Frederick Uckland and the Selling Sunset people, stuff like that. That has built a lot of credibility to come back and use, because, like we said all over this podcast, it's hard to stand out. So anything you can have that makes you stand out when you're in that, when you're talking to that client, you're in that presentation, you need to use. And a lot of people can't say some of those things. So that's something that I can bring out, that's just again a different layer that maybe your potential client hasn't seen before. But I think it all is rooted in consistency. I'm very consistent with what I do, and it's because I really like what I do and I'm really passionate about what I do. If you ask me to door knock every day like I do with this content, I would never do it because I'd want to rip my eyes out.
This is true, Matt. This has been a lot of fun. Any final thoughts? Anything that we may not have touched on that you'd like to at least share with the audience and so forth?
No, I just, I think people who aren't on social, like I said, it's not the end all be all, but I think as this business progresses and the world progresses, it's something that is, you're going to have to start to consider. Be genuine. People can see through when you're not. So just really try and be yourself and try and find that and put a little more emphasis on it within your business, because I think it's a bigger deal than you think. Find your why, find what you like to do, but then also find your it. The it is, we hear a lot about the why, but the it is, why do people want to work with you? What is the thing that makes people say they've got it? So focus on that, and put your face and your voice on your social pages, because that's how people relate with you. No one's going to call you if you just have a page full of sold signs, because you could be an axe murderer for all we know. People want to be able to actually see your face and hear your voice, and that's how they feel like they know you at the end of the day before they actually know you.
Yeah. And people kind of want to stay away from axe murderers too, right? So I mean, it
Yeah.
really makes sense.
I mean, I do. I don't know about
So-
everyone. Who knows?
Matt, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's it for today and for the Real Estate Edition podcast. I want to thank all of you again for tuning in month after month. It's been great talking to you and learning so much about real estate and business over the last few years. If you're missing the podcast, don't forget you can always go back and listen to the last 5 seasons, available everywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. With that, signing off for one last time, I'm David Bastel. Stay safe and have a happy new year.